The next information board in the exhibit is entitled, "At Last Came Two False Witnesses." Matthew chapter 26 verses 59 and 60 reads, "Now the chief priests and elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At last came two false witnesses." Just as there were two false witnesses against the incarnate word of Jesus Christ, so at last came two false witnesses against the King James Bible, the written word. Bible scholarship of the past 150 years has placed much attention on a very few number of manuscripts. While there are over 5,000 known New Testament manuscripts, attention has been placed on less than 10. Of these, Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus have been exalted as the oldest and best manuscripts. Sinaiticus has been recently made available to all on the Internet by the Codex Sinaiticus Project, with the mainstream media and general Christians fawning over the world's oldest Bible. This manuscript, in conjunction with Codex Vaticanus, form the basis of most modern Bible translations. However, these two manuscripts differ substantially from the text of the bulk of the manuscripts. Thus, the public needs to know the truth about these manuscripts. Contrary to what has been taught in most seminaries, these two manuscripts are worthless and hopelessly corrupt. Dean John Bergen, a highly respected Bible scholar of the mid to late 1800s, wrote of these manuscripts, "The impurity of the text exhibited by Codexes B and Aleph, that's Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, is not a matter of opinion, but a matter of fact. These documents are both of dubious origin. It has been speculated by some scholars that one or both were produced by Eusebius of Caesarea on orders of Emperor Constantine. If this is true, then these manuscripts are linked to Eusebius' teacher Origen of Alexandria, both known for interpreting Scripture allegorically as opposed to literally. Scholars have designated these manuscripts as Alexandrian, linking them with Alexandria, Egypt, the region responsible for early heresies such as Gnosticism and Arianism. Both are dated to the mid to late 4th century. Vaticanus is the sole property of the Vatican. It has been part of the Vatican Library since at least the year 1475. Its previous history is unknown. It was written by 3 scribes and has been corrected by at least 2 more. Vaticanus adds to the Old Testament the apocryphal books of Baruch, Wisdom, Ecclesiasticus, Judith, Tobit, and the Epistle of Jeremiah. Dean Bergen describes the poor workmanship of Vaticanus. Codex B, that's Vaticanus, comes to us without a history, without recommendation of any kind, except that of its antiquity. It bears traces of careless transcription in every page. The mistakes which the original transcriber made are of a perpetual recurrence. The New Westminster Dictionary of the Bible concurs. It should be noted, however, that there is no prominent biblical manuscripts in which there occur such gross cases of misspelling, faulty grammar, and omissions as in B, that's Vaticanus. Vaticanus omits Mark chapter 16 verses 9 through 20, yet there is a significant blank space here for these verses. Sinaiticus also lacks these verses, but has a blank space for them. Sinaiticus was discovered by Constantine Tischeldorf in the Greek Orthodox monastery of St. Catherine on the Sinai Peninsula. This monastery has a library full of old manuscripts. One would then assume that Tischeldorf found the prized Sinaiticus on a library shelf, hidden among the other manuscripts. Well, this is not the case. He found it in a trash can, waiting to be burnt. Sound incredible? Tischeldorf gives his personal testimony. "It was at the foot of Mount Sinai, in the convent of St. Catherine, that I discovered the pearl of all my researches. In visiting the library of the monastery, in the month of May, 1844, I perceived in the middle of the great hall a large and wide basket full of old parchments, and the librarian, who was a man of information, told me that 2 heaps of papers like these, mouldered by time, had been already committed to the flames. What was my surprise to find amid this heap of papers a considerable number of sheets of a copy of the Old Testament in Greek, which seemed to me to be one of the most ancient that I had ever seen." Why would the monks of St. Catherine's throw out such a valuable manuscript? Perhaps because of its low-quality transcription and its heavily corrected text. Concerning its sloppy penmanship, Bergen writes, "On many occasions 10, 20, 30, 40 words are dropped through very carelessness." His colleague, Frederick H. Scrivener, goes into detail. Letters and words, even whole sentences, are frequently written twice over, or begun and immediately cancelled, while that gross blunder technically is known as homoteluton, whereby a clause is omitted because it happens to end in the same words as the clause preceding. occurs no less than 115 times in the New Testament. Tregelles has freely pronounced that the state of the text as proceeding from the first scribes may be regarded as very rough. Sinaiticus has been corrected by at least 10 revisers between the 4th and 12th centuries. As for the text of the two manuscripts, it is notably an inferior text when one is able to determine the true text in light of the corrections. Scholar D. Mergen had personally examined these two manuscripts and noted that their texts differ greatly from that of 90% of all the manuscripts. When examining the Gospels as found in Vaticanus, Bergen found that 7,578 deviations from the majority, with 2,370 of them being serious. In the Gospels of Sinaiticus, he found 8,972 deviations, with 3,392 serious ones. He also checked these manuscripts for particular readings, or readings that are found only in that manuscript. In the Gospels alone, Vaticanus had 197 particular readings, while Sinaiticus had 443. A particular reading signifies one that is most definitely false. Manuscripts repeatedly proven to have incorrect readings lose respectability. Thus, manuscripts boasting significant numbers of particular readings cannot be relied upon. These two manuscript witnesses constantly disagree with the majority of manuscript evidence, showing them to be suspect witnesses. The Ten Commandments prohibit false testimony. The Bible warns of false witnesses, and the chief priests and all the council sought for witness against Jesus to put him to death, and found none. For many bear false witness against him, but their witness agreed not together. The telling sign of false witnesses is a disagreement in their testimony. It will be seen that Sinaiticus and Vaticanus do not pass the false witness test. While disagreeing with the majority text, they also heavily disagree among each other. Bergen observed, "They render inconsistent testimony in every verse, and it is easier to find two consecutive verses in which the two manuscripts differ the one from the other than two consecutive verses in which they entirely agree." In these last days, Satan is doing everything in his power to prepare men for the great deception of the Antichrist. As Sinaiticus has been exalted in the public's eye by the Codex Sinaiticus project, I would not be surprised if Vaticanus is also exalted and placed online for all to see and venerate. These manuscripts may be the driving force to get Protestants to accept the Apocrypha as well as the Epistle of Barnabas and the Shepherd of Hermes, both so heretical that even the Roman Catholic Church does not accept them as Scripture. We need to be alert and not fall for these manuscript idols. We also need to be aware that most Bible versions, other than the King James Bible, rely heavily on these manuscripts. The New King James Version, while using the correct text, includes alternate readings from Sinaiticus and Vaticanus in the margin, such as the old manuscripts say. We need to reject these for the tried and true King James Version.